Howdy y'all, this is Austin, Gridley Pickleball, coming at you with an interesting video. One of my good friends and one of my students here at Elite Pickleball, his name is Ian. He's a young guy, he loves pickleball, he plays every day, playing probably 25 to 30 hours a week, and he's been working with me a fair bit, and since about September, he's become about a 3.75, so decent improvement, especially from where he started, and he has a lot of good fundamentals. We actually played a tournament together, and like he could drop and he could dink pretty well, and his counters were decent, but he doesn't have that tennis background, so a lot of kind of like those ground strokes and like the serve, he was just like babying the serving and lots of things happening there. But anyways, I made this guide for him, but it's for anyone out here who needs a guide for if you're not a tennis player, this is what to do to become 5-0. And this is personal to me because I would consider myself not to have a tennis background. I'm very, very bad at tennis. My tennis coach, like in high school, taught me the wrong grip for tennis. And I'm not good at tennis. Happy to admit that. I've always been kind of jealous and frustrated how much easier tennis players learn pickleball. And so I feel like I've had to work harder in some ways than they have. So anyways, this is a personal topic to me, and I'm hoping if you don't have a tennis background, or even if you do, maybe you can learn something from here. We were chatting and trying to help him improve at pickleball, and the question is, so Sundar is a player who's been doing pretty well recently. He's a younger guy. He's got some really hard tennis shots, and he's got some tricky spins and whatnot. And my question to Ian, and like I'll ask this to you personally. So like, who's like a 4 or 5 in your area who's a tennis player? Okay, you think of anyone? Okay, so if you two are exchanging ground strokes and you're trying to play tennis like that tennis player who's a 4-5, are you going to be better than them? Are they even a 5-0? So why are we trying to copy how they're playing? And what's your goal for becoming a 5-0? If it's in a couple months or a year or like a year, can we even get better at playing the tennis player's game sooner than the tennis player can? Like, it's just how soon can you become a 5-0 with that kind of a strategy? It's probably really hard. And so like to me, it's like, hey, like you should be less focused on trying to play like tennis players. You should be more trying to follow this guide as follows below. So the basic strategy of becoming a 5.0 without a tennis background is getting good enough to get to the net when you're at the baseline, and at the net, winning more points than you lose. So at the baseline, you ain't trying to win. You're not trying to put crazy pressure. You're trying to get out of the baseline. You're trying to get out of that tennis player zone, and you're trying to get up to the net where you're going to be doing most of your training, and you're going to be a monster at the net. So yeah, we're trying to limit the amount of time we're having to train the mid-court and the baseline. We're trying to get that good enough where we don't have to really worry about it as much. Yeah, so if we can focus most of your energy on just winning a ton of points and being a monster at the net instead of having to split it evenly between the baseline and the transition zone, if we can just get you competent in those areas where you can get out of those zones and you can get to the net, which will be your strength, you're going to be doing really well. So kind of the opposite idea of a tennis player. We're not trying to hit crazy tennis ground strokes. We're not trying to do crazy drops. We're trying to get out of that zone to the net. Okay, so yeah, first point is get to the net. I prefer potentially an aggressive third shot drop, and then you could try to drop 1 or 2 balls to get to the net. You could also just do one really good drop that gets you and your partner up to the net. And honestly, a lot of times that's more aggressive and more effective than trying to do like a ton of pressure drops or a ton of like crazy drives. Just getting you and your partner up to the net is a huge gift for your team from the transition zone or at the baseline. And you need to master that. That's a big part of becoming a 5.0. And then you need a good enough transitioning game to get to the net. If you're going to attack in the transition zone, you better win the rally quickly and attack really hard. So we don't want to hit an attack and then the rally from the transition zone and the rally go on for 4 or 5 more rallies. Really important. We want to, if you're going to attack from the transition, it better be damn good and it better end the point pretty quick because you are out of position in the transition zone and they are in position at the net. So I prefer to not really attack as much in the transition unless I'm going to freaking do well. Okay, and then point number 2, you need putaways for when someone pops the ball up to you. You need it for when they pop it up to you as a dink at the kitchen, or maybe they do a fastball, but you can put it away. Or if they like hit a drop or a high drive from the baseline, you need to be able to put those balls away. You have to have good enough putaways where they're scared of you and where there's pressure on them, where if they do pop it up, there's consequences. So yeah, you got to have good enough putaways where there's consequences for their bad shots. Okay, and then once you've gotten to the net, you need consistent dinks that put some pressure. For example, I've found recently that I like to have a slice backhand cross court. I like to have a topspin forehand from right side to right side. I like to have a topspin forehand. I like to have a backhand slice cross court when I'm on the left. And then when I'm going more straight ahead, I find that flat dinks are usually a little bit better. Maybe topspin forehand, but it's got to be very careful. And yeah, if I can just be putting a little bit more pressure on my opponents, and I can be somewhat more consistent, then that's really good. That's what we're looking for. We're just trying to put a little bit of pressure. We don't have to win with every single dink, but we want to wear them down. We want to hit their corners with our dinks, and yeah, solid pressure, consistent dinks. Okay, and then you got to have fast hands and volleys. So when someone attacks you at the kitchen, if they're attacking a pressure dink, so if they're attacking a dink that you hit well, you need to punish them for that. They need to not, if they're attacking a good dink, they should not be doing that. They should be patient. They should have to dink your dink back. They shouldn't be attacking that. So if they're attacking one of your good dinks, you better be winning that 70% plus of the time. You got to be teaching them not to attack your dinks. If they're winning those shots when they attack you there, then why do they have to dink with you? They're not going to dink with you. They're just going to attack you, and they're going to win the rally. So we have to hit good enough dinks where we're set up for success, and then if they're attacking those dinks, we got to stop them. Can't let them do it. And then if they're attacking a dink that puts no pressure, you should be winning about 50% of the time. So try to put pressure with your dinks, but sometimes, if anything, your partner's going to put no pressure with their dinks, and you got to try to be winning at least 50% of those. Basically, you need to be hard enough to attack that someone is forced to keep dinking with you, and they can't just attack your pressure dinks. They can't just attack willy-nilly. They have to think twice about attacking, and they have to be careful. Yeah, super, super important. Fast hands. Okay, number 5. You need to have at least one of the 4 attacks at the net. So the 4 attacks at the net are forehand out of the air, backhand out of the air, forehand off the bounce, and backhand off the bounce. So you want one of these to be a win condition, where if they're giving it to you over and over again, eventually you got a good enough shot that you're going to be able to win 80% of the time. So, for example, for me, I had a ping pong background when I was first starting pickleball. My backhand topspin roll out of the air was money. And if they popped it up high enough, doesn't matter how good they were at pickleball, they're pretty much losing the point. Or at least 80% of the time, they're losing the point. And so if I got enough of those shots, I was going to win the match. So I would be patient with the other 3 for the most part, and then I would look to attack with that backhand out of the air. Gradually, my forehand and backhand off the bounce were good enough where I could sometimes attack a little bit there, keep them a little honest there, but that's always been kind of my money shots, my backhand topspin roll out of the air. So I don't know which is your money shot, but you need a money shot where if they give you a high enough backhand, you can attack high enough backhand, high enough forehand. Maybe you're really good at attacking off the bounce. Whatever it is, you need at least one of those 4. If you have 2 or 3 or 4 of the 4, awesome. And I have all 4 now, and some of them are a little better than others. But when you're first starting, you need at least one of the 4. You can't be 0 for 4. That's going to be hard to win the pickleball game, especially if someone else has 1 or 2 of the 4 and you have 0. That's tough. And then, yeah, so that's the basics. So basically, you got to be good enough to get to the kitchen, and then if you're winning 50 to 80% of the time at the kitchen, you should be winning the game. That's basically it. It's really simple. You got to be getting up to the kitchen, and then you got to win at the kitchen more often than you're losing. And then all your other shots have to be good enough not to lose. So, I mean, I teach people how to serve really good. But honestly, for a lot of pickleball, you can just like hit a crummy serve, and it's okay. You just need to mostly be consistent with your serves. It's nice to have harder serves and and interesting serves. It's nice, but that's not going to win you pickleball games. What's going to win you pickleball games is getting up to the net enough, and what's going to win you pickleball games is when you're up at the net, being able to win enough. So all that other stuff is icing on the cake. It's nice to have icing on the cake, but it's not the cake. So if you follow this strategy well enough, you'll be able to become a 5-0. I followed this basic strategy, and then after I became a 5-0, I started to really focus on number 6, which is really focusing on all the other things to work on. I've become really good at ground strokes. I've become really good at serves, return serves, all the good stuff. But if you follow those 5 first steps really, and you become really good at it, yeah, you'll be a 5-0. My guide to how to become a 5-0 without a tennis background. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. I hope you liked it. If you have any questions, please ask it in the comments. It took me, basically following this guide as I lived it, it took me about a year to become a 5-0. It took me 3 months to become a 4-0, 6 months total to become a 4-5, and then 6 more months to become a 5-0. And then it took me about a year to become a professional, more than that. So like to become like 5-7-ish, it took me another year. And so anyways, that's been how I've been improving. Pickle on, dudes.